Hi, this is Lisa, and you are listening to I Love That Movie. This podcast is for movie lovers. It's not an unbiased opinion, it's not a straightforward review, it's just a couple people talking about a movie that they love. The format is each week I have a guest, and that guest and I discuss a movie that they love, something they're obsessed with, something they connect with. We'll talk about the plot, the director, and the actors, but we'll also talk about the personal connection my guest has with that movie. So if that sounds like something you want to listen to, keep listening. Hello! If you'd like to catch up with me on Twitter or X, I'm at ILTM Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at I Love That Movie Podcast, and we have a Patreon. The show is always free, but if you want to support me on there, you can. That's at patreon.com/I Love That Movie. And it includes a weekly bonus episode where I just talk about what I've been watching lately. I'm going through a little bit of a dry spell until shows kick back up that I'm watching, but things like White Lotus and Fallout, lots of stuff on there. So go check that out. Also forgot to mention, I'm also on Blue Sky now. So I'm at ilovethatmovie.bluesky.social. So go check that out. I have a very familiar voice on the podcast today. Joining me again is Stu. Say hi, Stu.
Hello.
My guest all the way from Glasgow.
Glasgow.
Oh,
sorry.
Well, no, please correct me. that American accent coming out.
Yeah.
Glasgow. Okay,
Yeah.
I will say it right.
Okay.
Stu, you've been on the show a few times, but if you want to introduce yourself for anyone that might be a new listener, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi there, I'm Stuart. I'm from Glasgow, Scotland, and I currently work in the movie business, as in I work in a movie theatre. I enjoy that very much, though right now with Minecraft, it's a little bit challenging. So just a public service announcement, please don't be unkind to us workers.
Yes, please behave at the movie theater. We were talking about that a little bit offline, because I see things like that on the news, but I, of course, haven't witnessed this in person. But wow, it sounds like it's been a challenging time.
Yeah. As time goes on, it'll get less busy though. So
yeah, it'll kind of die down, and there'll be
yeah.
some new thing to get all worked up about. But we're not talking about the Minecraft movie today,
No.
surprisingly. But we are talking about a movie that you loved, Stu, and we've been kind of, with our schedules being a little bit different from each other, we've been waiting a while to kind of sync up, but we've done it. And if this is the first time my guest is listening to the show, the person that I have on, not my guest, I meant if this is your first time, it's early, okay? It's 10 a.m. on a Saturday for me.
Yeah.
If this is your first time listening to the show, my guest picks the movie. So what movie did you choose to talk about today, Stu?
I chose to talk about Sin City.
Nice. This came out in 2005. And I have seen this. Oh, 4?
No, I was going to say on April Fool's Day, 2005.
Yeah. Oh, really? April Fool's
yeah.
Day. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw this one in theaters. Did you see it in theaters?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. And I remember it was pretty big at the time. And I will also say that if you're listening to this and you haven't seen this movie, you might want to pause here because we are going to spoil it. You've had, 20 years to watch it, so we will talk about everything. But go ahead and pause, and if you're still with us, this is the synopsis. So in this quartet of neo-noir tales, a mysterious salesman narrates a tragic story of codependency, while a muscle-bound vigilante tears his way through the criminal underworld in search of his lost love. In another part of the city, a grizzled cop foils the ambitions of a child killer, and an ex-prostitute evades her ex-pimp with the help of her new boyfriend, Dwight. So, kind of like that synopsis says, it's kind of 4 stories about kind of tied into one. But I remember when this came out, this is how this was pretty close to movies like, oh man, the title's escaping me, but what's another movie that kind of looks like this? It's
The Spirit,
say it again.
The Spirit,
Yeah,
which
and
Frank Miller directed after this. So I think
oh
it's based off of
yeah.
Sin City. That's
No, I'm thinking of maybe I'm thinking of a Zack Snyder film. Uh
maybe Sucker Punch,
yeah.
300, 300 because
300.
that is
300. That's what I'm trying to
yeah,
think
because
of. Thank you.
they're both that Sin City and 300 they're both like were both Frank Miller comics.
Yeah.
Uh,
And they're both very highly stylized.
yeah,
Yeah. Um that's I feel like around this time there was a lot of experimenting with filters and effects and kind of hyper real surrealism that, right before we had a bunch of really big, like, I don't know, movies about like superheroes and things like that, like not as many comic book movies. And so yeah, this was pretty big at the time.
yeah, and like the visual style was like was like in a lot of cases was going one for one with the very stark, like simple black and white dichotomy of like the visuals, with
Yeah.
like only like with other colors only like being like sparingly used to like usually to make the
Yes.
point.
Yeah. I feel like that even carried over into like social media at the time. Like a lot of people posting wedding photos where it's all black and white and like one or two colors. Like it just fits the vibe of that time, I think. But tell me about your first experience watching this movie.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, I can't exactly remember if like, no, I know I did read the comics before I saw it, but I
Oh,
can't
okay.
remember. I can't remember the situation where like I read the comics and then I heard the movies coming out, or maybe I heard the movies coming out, then I gave me an excuse to read into the comics.
Hmm.
But I was definitely very excited about it, just like in general, like because it's like a Robert Rodriguez is what's we should say that is co-directed by Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller, original writer artist of the
Yeah, as a matter of fact, under directors it says Frank Miller, Quentin Tarantino, and Robert Rodriguez
yeah.
on IMDb. So,
Yeah, because
yeah.
Quentin Tarantino gets like a small one of the scenes in it, which was like it was a way for Robert Rodriguez to try and like sell Quentin Tarantino on using digital cameras because
Mm,
it said because like Quentin Tarantino was like very diehard about using film
yeah.
but Robert Rodriguez because of the way he works and like he has like he uses like digital so the way he incorporates VFX into his films,
Yes.
the digital help with that. And so he was trying to sell Quentin Tarantino, and he said, "Well, why don't you just do this one segment, with one little scene in the movie, just to get a feel of it?" So yeah, that was interesting as well. And I think it was also like there was maybe some sort of agreement where like Rodriguez would get to do something in one of Quentin Tarantino's movies in return, but I can't remember if that like played out because
Yeah.
I know he did do some of the soundtrack for Kill Bill.
Mm.
At least one song for Kill Bill, but
Oh,
I don't know if
wow.
that's the same thing. But
Yeah, I would
yeah,
also say during this time, both Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez were having a big moment. Like I feel, because how long is this after like Kill Bill and things like that?
it's only a few years after Kill Bill,
Yeah, like a couple years.
and it's still I think also like similarly, it's only a few years after Once More Time in Mexico.
Oh, you're right.
For
Yeah. And then
but
also like that Grindhouse film that they did together was in like
yeah,
2007, so this is like
yeah,
a couple years prior to that, but like
and
they were really big. I felt like I remember when Kill Bill came out,
yeah,
we my little friend group all went to, our local theater, our historical local theater, and saw Pulp Fiction together,
yeah,
and that was like the first time I'd ever seen Pulp Fiction. I just felt like everybody was super obsessed with these directors
yeah,
around this time.
yeah,
This was like their heyday.
yeah,
And not that they are not popular now, but they were
yeah.
especially popular then.
Also, don't forget about Spy Kids.
Yes, I loved Spy Kids. Honestly,
I still haven't actually seen any Spy Kids movies.
oh,
I've seen little clips that are taken out of context, like with that
yeah.
like that where they have like Steve Buscemi like delivering the
Yes.
most profound line ever delivered in a kids movie, where he says, "Do you think God stays in heaven because even he is scared of what he's created.
I liked it for, I had a personal reason to like it. Robert
Yeah,
Rodriguez had a studio in Austin, and that was very exciting to me. And the main characters are Mexican, and at the time there weren't a
yeah,
lot of main characters that were Mexican, so I was like, Spy Kids, and even though I was like way too old to see that, I went and watched it because of that. Now,
yeah,
if is it a good movie? I probably not. I haven't revisited it since then, so I don't know. Um, but that was my reason for watching it. But you're right, Spy Kids had come out
yeah,
as well, and that probably generated a lot of revenue to help him do things that he really wanted to do like this. So, you know, I'm sure it was good in that way. In fact, I that leads me into a couple of facts I wanted to share. The first one being that Robert Rodriguez has said that he does not consider this movie to be an adaptation of Frank Miller's work so much as a translation, and that's
uh,
why there are no screenwriting. There's no screenwriting in the credits. The only mention of writing is Frank Miller as the creator of graphic novels.
yeah. As very one to one in terms of like a lot of like again like the visual style, but also like I think the screenplay, yeah, the dialogue is like very like verbatim. There's a few little instances where they flip some things around. Like they do. Uh, what's interesting is when in the first story when like for instance when Marv goes to Katie's bar,
Mm-hmm.
and it cuts to suddenly Dwight's there and he starts taking over the narration.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually what he's the little speech he has about Marv saying that like he was born the wrong time and
Mm-hmm.
all that. That's actually from the first Dwight story,
Oh,
A Day to
okay.
Kill For, which was covered in the sequel. But yeah, so
Interesting.
it's like he didn't let it be. He didn't let like things like faithfulness like get around like doing little cool moments like that because you don't really get like people like hijacking narration in movies
Mm-hmm.
very much like outside of like say like Scorsese and with like Casino when just
Yeah.
like when Pesci just starts disagreeing with like De Niro's character in the narration. But yeah, so yeah, it's cool stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I was going to ask you, like, how similar it was to the comics, so that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Like the most like original thing to it is like with like the bookend the movie with the Josh Hartnett character
Mm-hmm.
and the scene with him with Becky at the end. That's original to the movie because in the comic she just seemingly just dies is in the like in the ambush and during the big fat kill.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like in the extended cut, which I've seen, they actually added like an extra scene
Uh-huh.
to that to the big fat kill where you get a more definitive death scene for Michael Clark Duncan's character Minute
Oh, really?
because like him and like the two of his henchmen like they sort of get they're wounded, they stumble into an alleyway and Miho's there and she
Yeah.
kills like the first two henchmen by just throwing her sword and they threw both of them at once, and then with
Wow.
Minute she has this like I don't know what kind of it's an Asian weapon of some sort, but it's like kind of like a
Yeah, it
spear
looks
and
like
an
a
axe.
throwing star almost, right?
No, no, she's got like this like long pole thing with like
Oh,
a
okay.
blade, and she like cuts him right down the middle. So she
Oh, wow.
definitively kills him, which is like a little weird like continuity wise for like certain comic things because
I
there's a
didn't even think of that. Yeah.
because there's because like Minute appears in like several stories and there's one that's like possibly set after supposed to be set after like Fat Kill. So this kind of I guess like now they have to make it that this would be set earlier if they do that. But I don't think they ever will because I think time's passed a little too long for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly yeah, it's very like yeah. You can if you're reading the comic as you're watching the film, you just see it like just they're just doing exactly it. Yeah, more or
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, there's definitely some differences, and it sounds like the extended cut has a little bit more explanation too. You mentioned the guest director Quentin Tarantino earlier, and he's listed in the credits. But the scene specifically that you were referencing involves Dwight and Jackie Boy in the front of the car before Dwight is pulled over by the police officer, which I'm going to be honest with you, the first time I saw this, that was probably the scene that stood out to me the most. And not being super familiar with Frank Miller, the dialogue was strange to me the first time I saw this. I was like, this dialogue is like kind of corny. Like I didn't really get it like the first time,
Yeah,
but the dialogue and the back and forth in that scene I thought flowed better, but that's because it was Tarantino
yeah,
like directing it. And you can definitely see his influence in that scene.
because the movie's like a mashup of like well, it's like obviously very inspired by like old crime noir and movies
Yes,
and
yeah,
novels.
very pulpy. Yeah.
So you have these like so the visuals and the language is like a lot of it comes from like 1940s and 30s and stuff like that. Like you see like old cars and stuff, and
Yeah, that's
there's like
true.
and like based in cities like loosely based on Los Angeles. So
Mhm.
you see like the architecture stuff like resembles that, but like it's also has like it's also like kind of like definitively set in the 1990s because of like the
Yeah.
way certain characters are dressed and like the sort of like equipment using and some of the stuff like that. So you get this like smash up of it where like Sin City like is like exists in its own little weird pocket where it's like it's like throwback, but it's also like really modern because it's like very it's got like a lot of things to it that are like
The
the way,
drugs, the more focus on sex crimes and leaning more. I feel like in the 90s, and I mean, this is really Frank Miller too, right? The
yeah.
violence, like all of that stuff was a lot more heightened in cinema, in TV, and things like that. It was almost like a more shock value, honestly, around this time than there would be today, I think.
Yeah,
And then, I mean, and especially when you're involving Rodriguez and Tarantino, like, come on, you're going to
yeah,
see
yeah,
more blood, than
yeah.
you normally would. Also, the swords that Miho uses, who is played by Devon Aoki, which is the sister of Steve Aoki, and they're both the children of the person that runs those Benihana restaurants or created them,
I didn't
which
know
is
that.
always such a weird fact. Yeah,
Yeah,
like Steve Aoki is like a super famous, DJ and artist, and Devon is an actress. But yeah, their money comes from Benihana of all places. Anyways, in this movie, the sword that she uses is the same one used by some of the crazy 88 from Kill Bill Volume 1. And that movie's director, Quentin Tarantino, of course, had been keeping them in the back of his garage. And so I guess he was like, let's use these swords again. So yeah, just fun fact.
yeah.
I kind of
Um,
have to wonder if, like, and this is kind of one of those random tangents I go on, but, influence from directors like Tarantino and others that lean very heavily into, they tell kind of modern stories, but lean real into the retro stuff. It's like, is that why we had hipsters and stuff in the 90s, like in early 2000s? It just seems like they had a lot of influence over, or maybe it just not correlation or correlation and not causation, but it feels like that time we were all very into things that were kind of vintage.
yeah, well, apparently that you can see that a lot in pop culture where there'll be like kind of a trend weight where there's like some sort of like love or like revival of like aspects of like something from like 20 or 30 years ago. Like how in 1980s there's like several movies that are like obsessed with the 1950s.
Yes,
And that may
yes,
or the 60s, and that may be because like maybe the directors at the time that was when they were like
exactly,
growing up, so
100%.
when that's what they were influenced by. Because yeah, I do actually have a quote here about from Frank Miller about like what
Hmm.
the actual like inspiration is. He says. I've been a fanatic for a long time for old crime movies and old crime novels, but it started with the movies and the old Cagney movies, Bogart and all that. I love just how the morals of the stories are. They're all about right and wrong, but in Sin City in particular, I wanted them all to happen to in a world where virtuous behaviour was rare, which greatly resembled the world I lived in. It's kind of like the old Rolling Stones song where every cop's a criminal and all the sinners are saints, where the low lives would often be heroic and the most strikingly beautiful and sweet women would be prostitutes. I wanted it to be a world out of balance where virtue is defined by individuals in difficult situations, not by an overwhelming sense of goodness, and that was somehow governed by this godlike comics code. And like yeah,
Hmm.
that's like a context to him where like when he started getting work as a comic book artist and then later writer, like what you could actually like, show in comic books was like much more strict because of like the sort of like moral backlash to comics in the 1950s,
Mm.
and there was like lots of like ridiculous like limitations and like lots of like things that like created I mean, it's like it's beloved now and it's for a good reason. But like the reason like the Adam West Batman is the way he is like that was very much in line with the way Batman was written in like
Hmm.
1950s, 60s
Because of the limitations, yeah.
because there was like this book release called Seduction of Innocent by this like psychiatrist or psychologist who was like saying that the comic books were like had like hidden like corrupting agendas and stuff like that.
Oh gosh, this is
And
like before TV ruins children, and then
yeah,
video games ruin
yeah.
children, and
And like
whoever what else. Yeah.
the comic book business like established a comics code authority which like laid down all these rules about what you could and couldn't get to the extent that apparently there was I don't know how true this is, but there's a comic book writer called Marv Wolf. There was or yeah, called Marv Wolfman, and apparently the comics code had a rule about depicting supernatural creatures on covers of things, which meant that his name literally couldn't be put on the cover of a comic. I don't know how real that is because
Wow.
it sounds too far to be true, but I don't know.
But this happens, right? Like
Yeah,
I think too, it's a good time for Sin City because when you think about honestly when I was growing up, like in the 80s, it got, that was like the Reagan era, right?
yeah,
Where there was a lot of heavy restrictions on TV and film, and then the 90s and 2000s were a strong reaction. And then now I feel like we're going back to where we were in the 80s, honestly. So it kind of
yeah.
ebbs and flows, and so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and like Miller, like of course, like in Dark Knight Returns, he was very like critical of like the Reagan era in that
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
he did sort of like it's basically set it in the 1980s and like had
Mhm.
like the urban decay of the time and like crime and like that because I think because I think he was a New Yorker. He grew up in well no he didn't grow up in New York. I think he lived in New York and like
Mhm.
and I guess like New York in 1980s was like very well, it was a lot more dangerous place than it is now and apparently he was
Yeah.
there sort of reflecting that. But yeah, but like what he was saying though about like the morals is like it's like that like in Sin City it's like it's not a black and white morality, it's a black and grey morality because
Yeah.
even the like the heroes of the story are they're like it's weird because it's like they're crime stories but none of the characters are like it's I would say are like they're not like criminals in the sense that they make their living through crime.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
like but they're just guys they're people they're guys who like they'll go outside the law for what they perceive as their own sense of justice, which is like
Yes. Which is
uh
very like
yeah
noir. Yeah.
because like Marv's a thug, but he's like a thug who's like they sort of like mentioned here, like he does like a lot of like sort of his own idea of like uh good Samaritan stuff. Like it's just that his idea of being a good Samaritan is like beating up, like mutilating and killing people who hurt
Yeah.
other people. And
Yeah.
it's like he's got also yeah, it's like it's interesting as well that they make him they do that with him, and like he also has that like moral compass, but they also like make it clear he also has like mental issues
Yeah.
uh, with the talking about how he needs his medicine and like he gets confused about certain things. But like it's weird that they do that. They do that so it gives him like a capability to do like very gruesome things.
Yeah.
But he's also still got a light. He's still got definitely got lines and he's got principles and like
Yeah.
standards that he abhors other people crossing.
Yeah. Yeah. He's definitely got his own sense of justice. And I
Yeah.
think like that aging, hard boiled cop thing is obviously, a big nod, like you said earlier, to older noir films. I think Clive Owen's character in particular is very like Bogart-ish, esque.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the cast actually, because we've kind of
Yeah.
talked about some of it, but you talked about Marv, who is played by Mickey Rourke.
Yeah.
And yeah, his character is like basically a psychotic murderer, but with a heart of gold. Like he does
Yeah.
have a good compass, and there is a theme of like older cops or older characters rather.
Yeah.
We got an older cop too, Hartigan, played by Bruce Willis.
Who's
And then yeah, oh, go ahead.
who's obviously like very like obviously influenced by uh Clint Eastwood and like
Yes,
Sorry Harry.
yeah.
In
Hmm.
fact, Frank Miller
Dirty
even
Harry,
says
yeah.
Frank Miller even says like the whole inspiration for his story is that he saw the last Dirty Harry movie, the Deadpool. Have you seen that?
I have not.
It's the one where Dirty Harry's like obviously it's like, I think it was like it was late 80s and like also by the way it has Jim Carrey in it
Oh, really?
as playing of
Wow.
all things a rock and roll. No wait when was it? Hold on a second. Let me just check something.
No, no, you're good. While you're
Because
thinking of that, oh,
he,
go
he,
ahead, go
he,
ahead.
he plays a rock star in it, but
Gosh, I
uh,
am not familiar with this.
he's like one of the because the whole thing is like you know what an actual Deadpool is? It's like a bet where
Yeah.
you list a bunch of people and you say, oh, I believe these people are going to die by the end of the year, and so in the movie there was a serial killer that was working off a Deadpool and like Dirty Harry's name was on it, but he was investigating the murders of other people and like one of them is Jim Carrey as a
So
rock star.
strange.
Is a rock star who's like basically based on Axl Rose because he's actually you see him like filming the music video and he's like Welcome to the Jungle.
Oh
So,
my gosh. No, I have
yeah,
not seen
but
that,
yeah,
but I
but
would.
anyway,
I
but
love Jim
anyway, that
Carrey.
movie that. But yeah, and by the way, that movie was like panned, and like Frank Miller hated it, and he said that when he came out of it, it's like that's the last Dirty Harry movie. It's no, so that's the last Dirty Harry story you're gonna do. No, I'll do the last Dirty Harry story. So
Oh,
this
so
is how,
that inspired him in a bad
yeah,
way, but still it worked out.
yeah,
I was thinking that it also his character also and Marv a little bit too reminds me of like Death Wish, like those kind of
yeah,
vigilante esque. I'm gonna kill
yeah.
everybody for
Yeah,
justice kind of story.
every like protagonist in Sesame is essentially a vigilante. Like
Yeah.
even when he's still a cop,
Oh
Hartigan
yeah.
is still acting like a vigilante because like as much as they might deserve it, I don't believe cops are supposed to shoot child molesters in the nuts.
Yeah, and I think too, like cops had a reputation right
Yeah,
around this time in regards to violence. Like there was a
yeah,
lot of
good stuff.
stuff going on in the news, so like about corruption and things like that. So that fits along the lines of that as well.
Yeah,
One of my favorite characters you have as your well, our listeners can't see us, but you used this as your icon on the platform that we're recording on. But one of my favorite characters is Dwight,
yeah,
played by Clive Owen, who I think physically he kind of looks like a more, I mean, handsome,
yeah,
honestly, version of like a Bogart type.
yeah.
And he's the youngest of the characters. And this was a moment for Clive Owen. Like he was really big for a while. I've always wondered like why he didn't become more famous, Like he has the look, he could have been I thought at one point he was going to be cast as James Bond because I don't know if you remember those like short BMW films. Do you remember those?
No, but I do
You sh-
remember that.
yeah.
I do remember that in the movie Croupier. I can't. The
I'm not
movie
sure. Let me look
because
up Clive Owen and see.
he was in a movie. Yeah, he was in a movie called Croupier, and like he
Uh-huh.
had like he wore a tuxedo in that for a lot of it. And people was always like saying, "Oh, he could be
Oh.
James Bond." And I kind of agree. He could have been James Bond, but he didn't. So, but yeah, I do like his segment in the movie is my favorite one because it's like
Yeah.
the most. I think it's like the most fun. It's like
I agree.
there's still stakes to it, but it's like a roller coaster, like it doesn't take itself too seriously, but it still maintains like stakes, and it's also quite fun in how it uses Dwight because when you're used to Dwight, you and like if you don't know like the comics, like you might come across initially with this impression of Dwight as like being a psychopath
Yeah.
because of like the way he like deals with Jackie Boy at first, but as it goes
Yeah,
on,
cuz I
you
mean
find
he's a jealous boyfriend as well. I mean it's like yes, Jackie Boy is horrible, but also the way he's like hunting him down and like hiding in the shower. I mean it's not normal. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um
but yeah, as it goes on though, it's like he sort of becomes like the straight man to this like constantly escalating situation where,
yes,
and
by
you see him get
comparison, yeah.
you see him get like more and more like exasperated by things that goes on. Where like just the bit where he's like when he's fighting at the tar pits and like everyone's going well, then a grenade rolls by and he goes, oh, and everything was just going so well, and it's like. It's just like there's just like a lot of like little wry bits of humor with him, where
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I really like Clive Owen. So what I'm referring to is back in, I think it was like 2002. I'm trying to find it on his IMDb, but yeah, like 2002, BMW, I guess as an ad for their car, did a series of short films, and he plays kind of like a driver, but also kind of he comes across a little bit Bond-esque, and each short was directed by different directors. One of them being Guy Ritchie, and that one was when he was like dating Madonna, I think. So it's about her. She's in it. but doesn't paint her in a great light. But if you ever get a chance to watch those, you'll see. Like I was obsessed with those little short films. They were pretty popular at the time. But
James Brown was in one of them.
yeah, you got to watch them. Yeah, Ticker,
Okay.
Beat the Devil, Hostage. Yeah, they were really good. But anyway, he is also one of my favorites in this one. But we're
Yeah.
not even done
Yeah.
talking about how stacked this
Yeah.
cast is.
It's like a great assortment for like an anthology movie, like big names
Yeah.
and like other like names and like the thing with Mickey Rourke is I think this was even before he did The Wrestler. He'd
Yes.
done
Yes.
he'd been in Once Upon a Time in Mexico,
Hmm.
and like he enjoyed working with that, and he actually recommended him to Frank Miller, and Frank Miller was like the guy from 9.5 Weeks, and apparently what they say that like the way he convinced them is just say, oh, just come out for us with drinks, and they just like spent like just went to a bar with Mickey Rourke, and apparently just after 5 minutes like Frank Miller like wrote a little note and handed it to Larry Rodriguez, says, oh, he is Marv.
Yeah, yeah, and he does a great job. Like
Yeah.
he's really good at that character. You've also got Jessica Alba as
Yep.
Nancy, Alexis Bledel as Becky. We already talked about Devin Aoki, Powers Booth as Senator Rourke,
Yeah.
and Tommy Flanagan as Brian, who
Scotland.
yeah, I always think of him because of Sons of Anarchy. I watched
Yeah.
that show. And then, of course, Benicio del Toro as Jackie Boy, Michael Clark Duncan, you mentioned earlier, and Rosario Dawson. I mean, just tons of people that. Am I missing anybody? I probably am. But
Brittany Murphy.
oh yeah, Brittany Murphy. Duh.
I,
Oh, rest in
I,
peace.
yeah,
Yes.
I particularly love Brittany Murphy because like she definitely like knows the feel they're going for with the way
Yes.
the way she just like talks and like the sort of like cadence her voice and like just like and like she like makes some like silly sounding like lines like actually work like when she's like Dwight what did you do to him? It's like I was
Yeah. She's. It's
I'll,
very
I'll,
campy. Like
yeah
it leans heavily. Yeah.
she's not like she's not self-conscious about it the way like I think some points there is Michael Madsen's in the movie as well, and I think
Hmm.
he's like the weirdest because like in his like the first scene like there's like a really weird way that he delivers the lines because it feels like he thinks it comes across like he thinks they were doing a read through while wearing costumes, so he's not.
Hmm.
He's just kind of like just saying the lines, but he's like kind of like getting really quickly, and it's like it's like it's kind of like it's very off in that like scene.
Yeah.
He's better in the later scene, but in that first scene, it's like I don't know. It just didn't feel right.
You feel like he's almost like, what are we doing here? Like,
Yeah,
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 I agree with that. Brittany
like,
Murphy she's really good at characters, though. I
yeah,
mean, she was in King of the Hill as Luann Platter, one of my favorite characters from the
yeah,
show. Um, and I don't know. I miss her.
yeah,
I remember the first time I ever saw her was from the movie Clueless.
yeah.
You're a virgin who can't drive. That hit so hard back in the 90s.
Also,
Loved her.
Nick Stahl is in it as well
Oh yeah, yeah.
as Rourke Jr.
Hmm.
aka the Yellow Bastard, who is like, yeah, he's one of he's like really good at being like an absolute despicable villain in it. Yeah, because it's like oh Elijah Wood as well as Kevin. Like
Oh yeah. Gosh, how could I forget
that
to say
was
Elijah
yeah
Woods?
that was like
Elijah Wood.
really surprising because who would have thought Elijah Wood would be able to like. I think this is this is like the first time he's played like a villain. No, no, wait. I think didn't he play like a villain in like when he was a kid with like in a movie with uh Macaulay Culkin, or was it? Am I thinking of something else?
Oh, I'm not sure.
But like,
Like the good son.
yeah, was
Uh,
that Elijah Wood or was that?
that was Macaulay Culkin, but I don't know if Elijah Wood was in that. He plays in this one Kevin. I'm like, I remember
Yeah,
this movie came out. I was like, would that upset you if they casted you and then you see the character and you're like, is this because I have creepy eyes or like what? Why was I chosen here?
yeah. Elijah Wood wasn't a good son, and let me
Oh,
just
okay, okay.
yeah,
I never saw that movie, but I remember the ads played relentlessly on TV around them. And I couldn't bear it because, Home Alone. I grew up with Home Alone, so I was like, no, I can't see him this way.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I think he was like the good. He was actually the good son
He
in
was
that.
actually,
And
well, yeah,
I
because
think
he
I think
looks like a
Culkin.
little angel, he looks.
I think Culkin was the bad son or something. But
Yeah.
I never watched the movie either. But like yeah, but like the fact that he plays like because this is after Lord of the Rings, so the fact he
Yeah,
plays
so
like
he's like famous for being a sweetheart,
yeah,
basically.
and
Yeah.
he plays like a mute serial killer who's also like credibly depicted as like being able to beat up Mickey Rourke.
Yeah, like
Uh,
he's weird and
yeah.
scary looking.
Also, there's something about I think like is it just me or does it feel like he's either wearing prosthetics on his face or they do something digitally to make him like look like make his look face look wider and make him look a bit more
Yeah,
like
he looks
monstrous.
cartoonish. It's like almost Dick Tracy-esque, like
Yeah,
the makeup they did, for sure.
yeah, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's also but yeah, he has a lot of like Robert Rodriguez like veterans in this because I think he was in the faculty, wasn't he? Elijah Wood.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
And
it's
like
like I feel like that's a popular thing to do, like when somebody's got a reputation for being really nice, it's like let's make this person the bad guy. Like, you know.
Carla Gugino as well. Spy Kids
Oh,
as
yeah.
Lucille, the parole officer. She has an extra scene in the extended cut, by the way. But she's actually in uh, That Yellow Bastard
Oh, okay.
because when Hartigan like wants to when Hartigan like realizes that has reason to believe that like Nancy's been under threat, so he needs to get out of prison. He like phones her up, and she rushes like to him, and she thinks that he's going to like fight the charges against them. And says, "Oh, we're gonna get you out for time served, then we're going to sue them." And he's like, "No, no, no, that's not what we're doing. I'm going to confess to this." It's like, "What?" It's like, "I'm going to confess to this. I'm going to tell them I'm a twisted child molester, and I'm going to do whatever they agree to." And she just like slaps him, says, "Okay, let's get this over with." So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, she's like good. It is kind of as a major bummer what happens to her character in the film. Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Fair.
do you feel in general about the way the movie handles like female characters? Because that is watching it now, you do kind of you feel like yeah, it was like I think maybe what hurts about it is it's like they're not none of the stories like have them as like the main protagonist and like
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest and say that that part I didn't love when I first saw it. And then, but over time, I'm kind of like, it was, I think, of its time. I
yeah
think if you were to retell it now, it would be different. But
mm,
this is, Frank Miller's voice, right? And
yeah
it's his world. And I did notice that around this time there was kind of a revisit of the noir genre, but with modern aesthetic and concerns. And I think that kind of lean into sort of like shock value and violence and stuff included sexual violence.
yeah
And I don't know that people at the time were as sensitive to it as they are now. Now they're like, because it's like it was kind of a male dominated industry. So nobody is actually asking women, what do you think of these portrayals? What do you think of these characters? So I think that's why it's the way it is.
mm,
But nowadays, I do think it would be a little different. And in some ways, the older noir films had better female protagonists, probably because of some of the restrictions on some of
mm,
the things they could and couldn't do. So the women are not being assaulted. They're not experiencing a lot of stuff that could have been in those movies had they not had restrictions. And in some ways, that makes the female
yeah
character seem a little more empowered,
yeah
honestly.
and you definitely wouldn't have had like the girls of Old Town in those old
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. I mean, like, you could still portray sex workers. I think it would just look different. And
Yeah,
definitely, like, the storyline with Nancy and Bruce
yeah,
Willis would not have happened today. Like, people would have been like, ooh, cringy age gap where you were her dad and now you are in love with her. There are some classic stories that have those elements, but they maybe because it's just so off-putting even back then they kind of try to get away from it a little bit. Like, I'm thinking of, I recently saw the musical Les Mis, and in that story Jean Valjean saves Cosette, and then in the book when she grows up he's like, oh, she looks like her mother and I feel
mm,
conflicted because she's not really my daughter. But in the play and in the movies they're like, let's not do that, that's
mm,
off-putting. To and because one cynical way to look at it would be you're sort of crafting a story where it's okay for you as a 70-year-old or whatever to be with
Yeah,
a 19-year-old. Like if I were to try to write a story like that, like, oh, I'm an older lady and then I saved a little boy and then he grew up into a hot man, it's like that's creepy. Like,
yeah,
you know? So I think that kind of stuff probably wouldn't be in it, but I think the reason it is because it's leaning really hard into like the world is a dark place, like
yeah,
there are dark things that happen. And the good part about his character is that he's like conflicted about that. He's like,
yeah.
this is
I mean,
like messed up. Like I can recognize this should not happen. So there's at least that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Ultimately, like I think he just does chooses not like. I mean, he should. Well, and he chooses not to like consummate it. Well, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It's like the professional a
Yeah,
little bit in that way where
yeah,
it's like their two characters are very lonely and they have this
yeah,
like trauma bond connection, and so you like on some level you can
yeah.
understand what they're
And
going through, each of
and
them.
then have you seen the sequel?
I have not.
Oh,
How
so
was the
because
sequel?
the sequel is good. I
Okay.
enjoyed the sequel, but it is hurt by the fact that it took so long to make it, and they do they do things and like it was like so like because when I remember when they first made this one and they said, oh, we're going to do, if we do a sequel, we'll do A Date McKill for, which is like the story about Dwight that comes before this, which they make references to it because you might remember that like people talk about how Dwight has a new face
Oh
and
yeah.
how he's like wanted for murder, and it's like in the first and like in his first story, didn't kill for, he looks different and he kills someone. He gets implicated in the murder. Well, I can't. Does he kill? He kills. Well, he's either tricked into killing someone or he's set up to look like he's the one who killed someone.
In the
But
first scene of this movie, you're talking
no,
about
and
Josh Hartnett or Clive Owen? Josh Hartnett, right?
no, no, sorry, I mean, and in the comics, Dwight,
Oh, okay.
like the big fat kill. This story is that's the second Dwight
Oh,
story. The first
okay.
Dwight story is A Date McKill for, and that's about how he gets that he gets like an old flame comes back into his life, and she's in a unhappy marriage, and basically lot of stuff happens. He ends up basically getting set up for he's set up and like he's wanted for murder basically, and he's like also like forced to uh get plastic surgery. So that's why in that movie he's actually played by Josh Brolin in A Day to Kill For.
Oh,
And
okay.
but the thing is, it's like what's awkward is that because they took so long to make it, Clive Owen was supposed to come back as Dwight post plastic surgery, but he wasn't available. Yeah, he wasn't available. I guess they figured he was like too old to like play the younger version of Dwight again. So what they do instead is like they weirdly put a bunch of prosthetics over Josh Brolin to get to sort of like look like
Weird.
it doesn't really work.
I
But
did
like
not know any of this.
but the point as I brought up is that like the it adapts a couple of comic books, but also his original ones has Joe, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as a gambler who takes on
Okay.
Senator Rourke in a card game. But it's also got like a sequel to the Yellow Bastard about Nancy wanting to get revenge on Rourke, and how she goes into like a spiral where she like becomes like much darker and like she's like it's quite funny because it makes her like dance routine. She like changes the way she looks and just like much more aggressive and like got dark. And it's what's quite funny is like Marv's in that sequence and he's actually disgusted watching it, saying it's like watching someone do the nasty with my sister.
Yeah.
but but it's like her trying to get revenge on Rock, right? But and also like so it's actually she's the protagonist of it. But they also have the ghost of Hartigan like following her around. So it's like Bruce Willis plays, and he's sort of narrating the story, and he's like watching us like, "Don't do this. It's not worth it. Just forget about me." And like some stuff. So it's like it's interesting. So it's like that. I think that maybe addresses the lack of like female like agency in the first
Yeah.
one. But it's like you have to like watch it yourself to like
Okay. I'll
uh
have to check it out.
yeah
I think like if you were to tell this again today, like a
yeah
couple of things that would change would be like, there's that scene where Goldie's sister is like, "Let me finish him," and then he's like, "No, Goldie," and like punches her out.
yeah
The fact that he keeps calling her Goldie, and I know he's confused, but it's like it kind of she doesn't get a lot of moments really,
Yeah.
and like even she gets really close to at least
Mm.
getting some revenge, but that doesn't happen. I think that would be different, and I also think one of the cops would probably be a woman, you know, like
Yeah.
just there would be things like that. But at the time that this came out, you wouldn't have that, and I also feel like these movies are an homage, like we've already talked about,
Mm.
to something even older. So that's another
Yeah.
reason why there aren't a lot of so
Mm.
that is
But
to
yeah.
say it's layered, you know,
Yeah.
how I feel about it,
I,
but I can appreciate it more now than I did, I think, when I first saw it,
mm.
if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
There is actually some restraint in terms of the
Oh yeah.
adaptation compared to the comics, where like one of the one of the big things, and this is all I think this is more to do with like Jessica Alba's like choices as an actress, and that's fine. But like Nancy in the comic, when you see, she's actually appears in quite a lot of the comics, just like as a dancer, and she's like a lot more naked in the comic
Gotcha.
than she right. But the thing is, it's like what's weird is I kind of feel like in the movie the depiction of Nancy as a dancer is kind of sleazier than it is in the
Oh
comic,
really?
because in the comic book, like we talked about before, how it's like black and grey morality, and how
Hmm.
if anything, but also like Nancy is like you agree that maybe Nancy is like the purest character,
Yeah.
and so like what Frank Miller said is like, Nancy isn't a stripper, she's an angel, and it's like the way he actually depicts the way her dance goes is just like it just kind of cuts to her whenever someone's in the bar, and like it often like cuts to her and you see her performance, but it's like it's drawn in a way where it's like very like ethereal. It's like it's kind of like she's like isolated, and
Yeah.
and it's like she does like acrobatic stuff, and it's like it's not it doesn't it I mean also, I mean I'm not going to lie and say there wasn't like obviously a fan service aspect to
Yeah.
that.
No, but I know what you
But
mean.
but
Yeah.
by comparison, in the movie, it can't really capture the feeling of that, and it's just like, oh, here's Jessica Alba in sexy clothing doing a dance,
Yeah, she was really big at the time. Yeah.
yeah. But
And I
yeah, but
liked her.
I really do like Jessica Alba. I think she's like really good in the film. For
I
that,
agree.
I don't always like her and things, but like
Yeah. Oh,
she's
you don't love
very
her in Fantastic Four? I'm just kidding.
well, she's yeah, I think she's very well cast for it, and like I
Yeah.
think also as well like it's cool that I don't think there's any indication in the comic that Nancy's like Latina. So just
Yeah. Yeah.
the colorblind casting was like good for that.
Yeah,
But
there was a there's some more diverse casting
yeah,
in this one, really,
yeah,
because they're trying to capture like
yeah,
the aesthetic of the 90s and the 2000s and be a
yeah,
little bit more real. So like I did
mm,
appreciate that.
mm,
And hey, at the end of the day, I appreciate that the story is showing humanity
yeah. Well,
around
yeah,
being a sex worker too. So like
yeah,
I mean, in this world there aren't other powerful people that are the same level as them, but the people that are still
yeah,
portrayed as the good guys. I
yeah,
mean,
and
except for poor Becky, but
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Though there is actually, sorry, something else I was going to get to was like we were talking about Wendy, and
Yeah.
like one of the other things that when they sort of showed restraint was when when she visits Marv in prison at the end.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And in the comic book, she says you can call me Goldie, and then she takes her jacket off and she's completely naked and they have sex. Right?
Yeah.
So, but in the movie, it's just more.
It's
She
more
just like
sweet.
she just
Yeah.
lies on him in bed, and it's like a tender moment. So like, and I do think that's a better like thing, and it's like less. It's less creepy and well, yeah.
Yeah, and
It's less
remember, like, as much
trauma.
as he's in love with Goldie, he met her one time. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like it's that he's like lonely,
yeah,
and you know he didn't even know what her occupation was, so that's not why he was
yeah,
after her. He felt like, or they make it a big deal in the movie that like he felt
yeah.
so special and touched that she was interested in him.
Yeah.
So,
Also,
I mean, yeah.
on the issue of on the subject of like the ladies old time, you know the one called Dallas, who's kind of like she's like a gunslinger, but she's like kind of
Oh
looks like
yeah.
Zorro. That's she's played by Robert Rodriguez's sister.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That,
I liked her outfit.
yeah. It's
It's
funny
like,
though, just to imagine him like pitching to his sister. Oh, hey, would you like to play a prostitute?
yeah, she's like, well, let me see the outfit. Okay, yeah, I will do that. Because I mean, it is kind of fun. It
yeah,
reminds you of like an old west
yeah,
movie where all the brothel,
yeah,
you know, saloon girls are
yeah,
like kind of the
yeah.
baddies. You know, like I get it. Like it's
Yeah.
cool.
And with
Is
and with
there? Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
sorry, and with Gail It's not. It's not really clear that how like what level her sex work is. It seems like she's
Yeah, she
probably
kind of seems
mostly
like
a
a
dog.
madam or something to
Yeah,
me. She's in charge.
she
Yeah,
seems mostly to be more of a dominatrix than
that's true.
yeah, and like Rosario Dawson like totally owns that as well.
Yeah, and her character looks cool. Like I like
Yeah,
her
exactly.
earrings and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, she
and she
definitely seems like she's the leader, clearly.
yeah she like totally gets into it is like whenever like whenever Gail has to like kick ass and like kill people, and so she
Yeah.
just like laughing maniacally when they're like gunning all those people down at the end. Oh, by the way, like that, do you know like that sequence with like the whole plan where they're exploiting like the narrowness of the alleys and
Mm-hmm.
that's like in the comic book they make it more they talk about it directly. Is Dwight gets the idea from 300, the Battle of Thermopylae, and like this comic book,
Oh.
that comic book came out like just like 3 years before 300, so it's
Oh
possible that like
wow.
writing that inspired Frank Miller to write 300, or maybe he had that in mind
Hmm.
at the time. So and so it's like it's a really cool like thing that gets like a reference. It's not in the movie, but I don't know why, because it's like it would make but maybe there's like some sort of maybe there's like because maybe there's like maybe like some sort of feel there'd be like a rights clash with like because I think 300 came out before this, didn't it? I believe.
I don't
Or
know.
does
And
it?
I mean, the more you mentioned, or earlier before 300, you also mentioned like Sucker Punch. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're right. It is
Oh
aesthetically
no,
like that
it came
too.
out. 300 came out like a couple of years later, so maybe
2006. Yeah.
so maybe it was in development, and maybe they'll just like we don't want to like maybe clash with Warner Brothers on this or something like that, maybe.
It could be.
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But
What are some other like scenes from the movie that you really enjoyed?
the montage of Marv like working his way up the food chain where he's like just attacking, he's like beating up
Oh
all, he's
yeah.
like and like he's driving the car and he's just scraping that guy's like face along the pavement, and he's like, okay, but how does he expect to get information? Like, that guy's probably dead at that point. And then like when he's in the confession, he's talking to the priest who's played by Frank Miller, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
I
like
forgot about that.
and uh, what else? It's just a lot. Because like the movie is like very like visual, like just the movie just like throws like lots of like just like what was it just big pictures at you, and like characters like kind of like walking through them, and like also just like ridiculous like the movie has no respect for the laws of physics, because like how many times do you see someone like jump like off like 5 stories and like land totally fine, including Dwight who like jumps off like a balcony and he like just lands on like the ground and doesn't even like limp or anything afterwards.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, just yeah, it's like I do like I do also like when the way he uses winter, because that's like his excuse for like quick more of the contrast between
Mm-hmm.
black and white, especially with the blizzards and stuff.
Yeah.
I also like just like lots of little bits of like humor in the movie as well, where like uh oh yeah, we didn't bring this up. Nick Offerman is in the movie
I
as
know I saw that in the credits, but I guess I didn't identify him in the movie.
he's one of the two henchmen who like talk in overly elaborate dialogue.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I have to go like back and watch that scene again
Yeah,
before
he's the one
my
who like picks
rental
the
is out.
Ferrari as the car, and the guy's just pointing at,
Oh,
yeah, where are we going to put, where in this trunkless, the
I
bone
cannot believe
spine?
that was
Yeah,
him. I did
yeah,
not identify
yeah,
him at
yeah.
all.
This was like very like I
He's
don't know
young.
I don't know when he started acting, but this is like this is like definitely before he was like kind of
Yeah.
known. But like yeah, it's funny to like see that when he's like also like the moment from my Avatar where Dwight is like, this is the part we're talking about where like Dwight comes across the cycle because he's holding Jackie Boy's head
In
down,
his own pee, yeah.
and it does like the slow pan in on him, and you think he is actually killing him. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like yeah, it's like just lots of like yeah, it's I do like the I do like just like a lot of the action scenes in the Big Fat Kill, and
Yeah.
like it's like it's definitely the most like dynamic in terms of that. And you just see like lots of car like the car chases, and you see the fight with the Irish mercenaries,
Yes.
um, and like the whole sequence where Jackie Boy is like very like systematically, Jackie Boy and his like friends are all systematically killed, and he's like they're like playing with him and that,
Yeah.
and but yeah, and
There's
like
a lot of good ones. I mean, I like the scenes with Jackie Boy and Dwight in the car. I do think that's probably one of my favorite scenes. Yeah, especially like the neck gash stuff. I mean, it's like really gory and creepy, but
mhm,
the idea of this like kind of corpse still talking to him is just disturbing, but like kind of a fun scene. And
yeah,
I like that. I like the stuff with Miho.
yeah,
I like her aesthetic and her like silent killer stuff. I know that under a modern lens, a lot of people don't really like that like silent, you know,
yeah,
Asian lady killer. Like I get the issues with it, but there's also a part of me that like a silent killer thing is just cool, like and so like I like what she's doing in the movie and I think she does a
yeah,
good job and she comes across as really like gentle looking but then, kind of
yeah.
a cool assassin. And I liked it. So
Yeah,
I like
Frank
that.
Miller does like a lot of like stuff with like ninjas and like Eastern like warrior types because he did like he created like the Hand for Marvel Comics because he created them for Daredevil and like they've obviously like been like a very like long-standing
Mhm.
thing. He also did like the Wolverine in Japan storyline that
Mhm.
got
Yeah.
adapted for the Wolverine. But yeah,
Yeah. And nothing bums me out more than when Devon Aoki was in the Dead or Alive movie. That okay, as much as I'm saying about like empowerment and being I loved those games, very
yeah,
embarrassing, but I loved like the volleyball Dead or Alive games and the other games too. I had them. I know it's crazy that I'm admitting this, but I was so excited when the movie came out and then it was so bad. Actually, while we were talking too, I was looking up Devon Aoki because I'm like, what happened to her? Apparently, she's doing well. She has a big family now, and I think it looks like she's focusing on her
fair.
family, and I'm like, that's kind of sweet. Like she has like one, two, three, four children. My gosh.
She
Anyways,
she she was also in Too Fast Too Furious, so
that's right. Yeah,
she was Ludacris's character's girlfriend, I think, in that. So
yeah.
maybe they can bring her back in next
Yes,
one.
exactly. Like anyone can come back from those franchises. So,
Yeah,
or from that franchise in particular.
yeah.
So, but
Because
yeah, I liked her. Yeah.
she wasn't even in. She didn't even play Miho in the second film. They got oh, who was it? I know.
Maybe that's when she started kind of scaling back her acting career to focus on her family. Yeah.
Yeah, they got
Interesting.
who did they get for that? Because I can visualize the actress, but is it Chung? Was it? Where is it?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't
She's here.
seen it.
Uh, it was Jamie Chung. Yeah, Jamie
Oh,
Chung
okay.
played Miho in the second film.
Okay. So
And like
some recastings
yeah, and that tells us a little bit more about
about her
um
backstory.
a little bit because it's like and that, like I said, in that like Dwight goes back when Dwight's like framed for murder and he's like wounded, he goes to Old Town and he has a hostile reaction because like Gail's like pissed off at him because like
Mm,
he left her to go with his other woman.
yeah.
That's the Dave McAllister in the title, and like they're going to like fret and like I think like Miho's going to like kill him or like there's the implication that she's going to kill him, but then Dwight brings up that he saved her life at one point and she didn't know it. She knew she was saved by someone at some point when she was younger, but Dwight was the one. So she's like, so they've got like kind of an understanding, but also
Mm,
it's also kind of clear in like this film that Miho's like ultimately loyal to like Old Town and Gale, and so like
yeah.
she would probably would kill Dwight if she was told to. But,
Ah, got it. Okay. Yeah,
oh,
I'll have to check that out.
that's a cool bit I like actually was when he's like sinking into the tar and he's like
Yes.
beating himself about it and she saves him and he's like, "You're God, you're an angel, you're Elvis."
Yeah, I like that line. It was good.
And she does actually get to like save. Yeah, she saves his life repeatedly in the films. Like
Yes, she does.
and like she stabs a guy in the back and he's like, "Oh, she won't feel offended unless she wants him to." She
Yeah.
she, she makes him and yeah.
She's
Yeah, oh
definitely
yeah,
the best like killer in the film or
yeah.
of the girls in that town. Yeah.
It's like it should maybe I don't know if it's like maybe we should bring it up, but like Frank Miller did have a period where he did get a bit more problematic in his views. He like he wrote he was inspired to make a post 9/11 Batman comic called Holy Terror, where he was going to take on Al Qaeda, and
Oh
apparently and it was so extreme that it got cancelled, and he like reworked it in the original thing, and like it's been criticized as like being very Islamophobic, and he has like since like sort of said that like I look back in things I read and I was like, oh, I was very. I was like, I'd never seen anything with so much anger in myself before that, and so he's kind of sort of expressed regret about things he's done, and said, and like, I think he's like, because like Frank Miller is like quite old now. He's like I think he's like in his 70s, and he had health issues. I think he had specified health issues, but I think like he's kind of, he's basically very. He said that he's like kind of like moved past that. But he's still like obviously people have like people have very strong opinions about him sometimes, especially like
that's true.
So I didn't want. I mean, I like a lot of his work, but I do think we do have to like sort of address it. There is things about it that some people will take issue with, and he's sort of addressed that. But yeah,
that's good.
So what else was there? I do like the sequence where I do think this film does do like exposition pretty well. I mean, I think when you're doing narration, that's like a very easy way of doing thing. But I do like, for instance, when Marv's on the bridge and he's like, when it's like covered in, when he's getting like pelted by the rain, and he's like realizing, oh, I'm going to go kill this. Was it Cardinal Rourke? And like you have like the big statue. Oh yeah, or Rutger Hauer. We should bring up that Rutger Hauer's in the movie, and like he's very cool. He's very again. He's like you see him kind of you see like images of him, but then he only has really like one major scene, and I think he's pretty good in it because like Rourke like accepting his like death is coming, but he's he's sort of scared, but he's also just kind of like taunting Marv about it, about how, I'm still better than you. You're just an animal. Even though he's admitting to the fact that he's like he joined in on like cannibalism. And he's saying on all the people who he was like, eating, they're worthless. Nobody cares about them.
That was a good scene.
So I'll just say I know another couple of like good scenes, like again from the Big Fat Kill is when. Well, we already talked about it, but like when Mio's killing Jackie Boy and these guys, something that really pops about that scene is that like because they do the black and white thing, and like the blood is like pure white, and it makes it look much more vivid than it would be if they like went red,
and more comic booky too.
Yeah, and like also and like the later another example of a funny scene is like when Miho like delivers the message by shooting the guy through the stomach with the arrow.
Yeah,
and the guy's just standing there still alive saying, "It doesn't even hurt."
But no one's acknowledging him because I mean, let's face it, he's got a swastika on his head. Yeah, so
which she like shoots him through that as well. It's also which is also quite funny because like she uses a swastika throwing star as a weapon, but that's based on like the Buddhist swastika.
Exactly.
But it's like just what I think. Yeah, it's like just the Big Fat Kill like really handles like tone really well, just jumping between the dark and like the extreme and the funny and like that. Like I say, it's more of a yarn, and it's like very because especially compared to the Date Me Kill For, well, like it's more like Dwight's a much more tortured character in that because he's manipulated by a femme fatale and who's from his past, and he's got to like sort of reckon with that and and stuff like that.
All right, well. I think this brings me to my last couple of questions then, Stu. First off, I know we've been talking about it for about an hour now because you love this movie. What kind of keeps you coming back to this film if you had to summarize it?
It's just like for its time, it's just very unique. Just like visually, it's got and it's also like you don't get a lot of like anthology movies in general.
That's true.
And it's like the way like it does all these like stories justice in their own right, but also like has fun little like interconnections between them. There's like for instance like maybe you didn't pick up on it, but like when Hartigan's being beat up by the cops and the cops try to like encourage him to like sign a confession, and there's that other girl from Old Town. She's actually one of the victims' heads you see in Kevin's like
Oh,
cellar later on. Um,
I
and
did not notice that. Thank
yeah,
you.
there's like little things like that, and it's like that, like it's a very good realization of this world, and it's also like I do like the fact that it's like it handles information to the viewer in a good
Mm-hmm.
way, but it's also isn't afraid to like throw little bits of intrigue, because like I said, it's like the Big Fat Kill is like a sequel, and it has like references to the original story,
Mm-hmm.
and like you'll find out if you watch A Date to Kill For, you'll see some of the explanations. Like also other things where like Marv, when he's like talking to Lucille about his like past like legal problems, and he talks about
Yeah.
oh, this isn't like someone trying to like burn a homeless guy with a fuel can. You do see that story in A Date to Kill For as well, because there's a Marv story called Just Another Saturday Night, where he's like retracing his steps because he's like forgotten. He wakes up and he's obviously been through some stuff, and he's like retracing his steps, and he's like trying to figure out what happened to him, and like that covers that story. And so it's like then the connected world of it is very cool, to the fact that like I do like the way the Josh Hartnett thing bookends the movie, with especially since did you know like that opening sequence with Josh Hartnett and was it who's Marla Shelton is the actress?
I'm not familiar with her really.
Yeah, that's actually the first. That's actually something that that's actually the first thing that Rodriguez like shot, and he shot it
Oh,
as a he actually shot that as a pitch to Frank Miller to let him to
interesting.
allow him to like do the movie. So yeah, so that's why that's interesting, especially since like his character, Josh Hartnett's character, is like actually like he appears in like one other story. He's actually the villain in that story, called Hell and Back. But they haven't, that would have been a good movie to make as well. Though it also has like very there's a sequence in that where the main character is like drugged, and as
Mhm.
he's like fighting, he hallucinates, and like so you get like this is like the most like full color sequence you get in a Sin City story. But because he's hallucinating, he sees all these other IP characters. So you'll see Superman. You'd see Superman in that. You see Rambo. You'd see I think maybe RoboCop, and you even
Oh,
see
wow.
like you see Guns of 300. So it's like yeah, I think that might also be like an issue, like blocking that story from being made. At
Yeah.
least being done in a way that's like fully encapsulates it. But yeah, I do think it's like again, it's like a comic book adaptation. At least it's not an adaptation; it's a translation. It's a
Hmm.
very like recreation from point to point, and it embraces the source material in a way that a lot of like comic book movies don't. But yeah, it's very cool.
Yeah. And how would you pitch the movie to someone that like hasn't heard of it before?
Do you want to see a dark but very fun and unique crime movie that with a great cast and a great like visual style you won't see almost anywhere else? Watch this.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much, Stu, for having this discussion with
yeah.
me and for coming back on. Always appreciate having you on and hope to have you back soon.
Thank you very much for having me. I hope to be on
Yep.
soon again.
Thanks.
Bye.